very much for you all joining this morning. I was approached by Patrick. Dan had contacted Patrick about a reach out for the Tay5G Challenge. So really I'm just doing a wee bit of facilitating, so I won't take long. My name's Tony in Yellow. I've recently joined CeeD as project lead on a SaaS project called WasteMap in the net zero space. This is not a time for that, but if anyone's interested in finding out a bit more about that, then by all means reach out to me or any of the CeeD team, Joe, etc., anybody you know, and I'll happily tell you a wee bit about it. It's fully funded by Innovate UK. So, as I said, my colleague Patrick called me. I was heading down to the borders the end of last year, and he said that Urban Foresight are really looking for us to garnish some appeal and some of our network to talk about the Tay5G Challenge. So thanks to Dan Langford and thanks Patrick for allowing us to be involved in this. So really just to encapsulate the purpose of the webinar is to introduce the Tay5G Challenge Fund. This is £450,000 available as part of this competition, support up to 6 applicants who can demonstrate impactful projects for products, services or solutions which use 5G. So first of all, some basic housekeeping. We are planning to record this session, so if anyone's got any objections, speak now or forever hold your peace. So that's the first thing. Mike Groves there. Thank you. And just again for the benefit of sort of conciseness, we've got extensive time Q&A session that Dan's earmarked at the end after his presentation. So if we could maybe just leave our Q&A till the end, by all means drop things into the chat if you want, and we can pick that up with other questions. However, that's the sort of basis of it. And I also preface this in saying that Dan has been really fantastic. He's organised another drop-in session this Thursday. So if this really does pique your interest, there's an opportunity to engage directly with Urban Foresight and Dan on Thursday of this week. And I will also emphasise, this is an EOE expression of interest, the deadline 31st of January. So don't be freaked by it. So there's ample time and it's not onerous at all. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dan Langford from Urban Foresight. He'll give you a presentation, and as I said, we'll have ample time at the end with a Q&A session. So thanks and enjoy, and I'll pass over to you.
Thanks very much, Tony. Really appreciate the opportunity today to, I guess, take up your lunch breaks to talk about how we can help you out with potentially up to £450,000. So I, of course, will open up the obligatory PowerPoint presentation and just share that right now. A little bit slowly. Hopefully you can see that now. Okay, so as Tony mentioned, we're here to talk about the Tay5G Challenge Fund on behalf of Tay5G. What we're going to discuss today is talk about the managers and the background behind the Tay5G Challenge Fund, an overview of that, some specific details around the process. Of course, the application process itself and the entry criteria, and the most important part, how to get in touch and how to submit your application, which we're certainly looking forward to. So myself, I'm Dan Langford, Principal Consultant with Urban Smart Cities Consultancy, who work globally, to be honest, with offices in Newcastle and here in Dundee. We have been contracted by Dundee City Council to manage this process. Managing different challenges like this is something we do quite regularly, so it was a really exciting opportunity and looking forward to seeing the outcomes. Just a little bit of a high-level background as to where this comes from. This initiative is a part of the Tay Cities region deal for obviously the Tay Cities area, and as you can see there, all the different partners involved in the Tay Cities deal, and of course the Scottish and UK government being the source of the funding at the end of the day. So as you can see, there's some fairly high-level goals there, and this is just a small project that will start contributing to those quality jobs and levels of investment going forward. 5G is definitely seen as a way of having significant impact in the region. So Tay5G itself as an initiative aims, as it says, aims to deliver a range of outcomes really around sort of economic development, growth, skills development, and generally improving connectivity in this particular region. Now, the outcomes here, these are really, again, high-level outcomes, so they're not specific to the Challenge Fund as such, but the Challenge Fund projects do need to show that they are contributing to, not all of these. It's probably going to be difficult to contribute to all of them, but as you're looking through the expression of interest document, these are the points that you really need to keep in mind, and craft your responses to address. So just going through these quite quickly, really basic stuff. It's a demonstration of which use cases work. One of the main goals of this challenge fund is to get some solutions out into industry and see what works and what doesn't, on a 5G platform. Really important aspect as well is if you're successful in getting through, how you're going to disseminate that information, either in your industry as a solution provider, if that's your role, or in your industry if you're an actual user of recipient of these technologies. How do you spread the good word and have an impact locally? And ideally, that'll lead to sort of increased and accelerated R&D and investment in the area. Provide a little bit of confidence around 5G as still quite a new solution for different things, and start growing the ecosystem of companies, our universities and other research institutions being involved in 5G ecosystems. Positive perception at the end of the day, even if a project doesn't work out so well, we have learned something in there. So, learning from that and helping the industry understand what does and doesn't work is a key aspect. And of course, at the end of creating new industries, having a real economic development impact on local businesses. Again, whether you're an innovator or a user of solutions that might be built on top of 5G. We're welcoming full range of companies to get involved in this. So, that is the key point I do want to make, that we're not just looking for the technology and solution providers. We really do want to make sure that the end users and customers, as it were, are involved in this process as well. As Tony mentioned briefly, it's £450,000. It's a UK-wide, so we're welcoming companies from all over the UK to get involved in this. What the one catch is, being Scottish government funded, we do need there to be that connection to Scotland in one shape or form. So as long as someone in the consortium is a Scottish company, then that sort of checks that box. We're looking to fund up to 70% of the total project costs. It is a simple two-stage application, and ideally the majority of the projects will take place or be demonstrated or validated in the Tay Cities region. Excuse me. And throughout this presentation, we'll go into these in a little bit more detail. So yeah, forgive me up front, it's going to get a little bit dry, but when you're going through these details, it's just the nature of the beast. So these focus sectors, I do need to make it really clear that these are really just the sectors that are of interest to the Tay Cities partners. The competition is no way limited to these sectors. It covers a lot. It covers quite a bit of ground with these 8 topics, but we just wanted to point out that these are the sort of priority sectors. So it may be advantageous to be targeting those or falling in within them, but everything is going to be considered, no matter what sector you're looking at. At the end of the day, this is a 5G project, so it is about enhancing the visibility and applicability of 5G in itself. So you might have something that doesn't fall within these sectors, but it just does an amazing job of demonstrating and having a greater impact on that sort of 5G ecosystem. So it's still going to be, that would still be very, very relevant to this challenge. Key dates. The big important one, I guess, coming up is 31st of January is the application deadline for the expressions of interest. We'll get into the details of expressions of interest shortly, but soon thereafter, assuming there's no extensions, we will notify you that you've been successful and go through to the second stage. And there'll be sort of a process, I think it's roughly, a little bit less than a month to develop a full application at stage 2. And this is, we'll hopefully let you know fairly soon after that who the winners are to go through to the final award. We've realized that for various reasons that we're anticipating projects won't actually start until May. So keeping in mind that the projects all have to be completed by the 31st of March, you're really talking about a 9-month project if that's what you need. If you do it quicker, great. But that's the timeline we're working to. Getting into a few little details here. 5G, in our experience with 5G challenges in the past, one of the key focus areas we need to make sure we highlight is that this is a 5G challenge, as it says on the tin. So any proposals that we receive really need to highlight how they're actually needing or taking advantage of 5G characteristics. I won't go into the technical detail of what all these terms mean, but at an incredibly high level, generalizing, we're talking about greater bandwidth, greater number of devices, and low latency, sort of high-speed communications. And what we're really referring to here is we're trying to avoid situations where a proposal could be done using Wi-Fi or existing 4G and really doesn't consider how it's going to benefit from being enhanced by 5G. And we've got that question at the bottom there is asking yourself how, what does 5G enable in your solution that existing networks don't? Just trying to think of an example off the top of my head. You may have an app, a phone app or something like that. There's something you can't do without higher bandwidth, or there's something that's not going to work, a feature that you'd like to implement that's not going to work without when you get to sort of hundreds or thousands of users in a small location, for example. So it is really about how 5G is going to open up or unlock some features in the solution that you have. Okay, one of the criteria was that at least most of the project is applicable to the Tay Cities region. One way of making it applicable as well is by taking advantage of the range of test beds that we have available in the local area. So the 3 test beds in Dundee in particular are Celesta Gardens outdoor test bed, which is managed by Dundee City Council. The Abertay University indoor test bed is another one that's available, and I know we have our friends on the call from the Scotland 5G Centre, and the Abertay University cyber quarter test bed is available also. Now, gaining access to these and getting more information is sort of comes after stage 1 as to whether you're welcome to have conversations early on as well, but understanding what is available there, what is the technology that's available, is there a cost involved, what kind of other support comes with those test beds is something that's definitely worth happening. And these test beds are going to enable you to, as the name suggests, trial or do those preliminary tests of how 5G applies to your solution before maybe getting out into the wild and doing a real world application. Another key criteria is technology readiness level. The reason we've sort of selected this particular technology readiness level, sorry, if you're not familiar with TRLs, we've just included a link there, and should have mentioned this presentation will be shared afterwards, and potentially the video. So you'll be able to go explore that if this is new to you, but this TRL sort of describes the level of development of the technology. We're looking for a more advanced technologies. The reason being, as I keep repeating, it's a 5G project. So we don't want to spend the project, developing a very, very early stage idea or something that may not even be at prototype yet. We want to spend this project applying 5G to your solution. So we're just hesitant to get to those very early stage ideas because it ends up being more focused on the development of that solution rather than the application of 5G. Hopefully that makes sense, but happy to dig into that a little bit more. Okay, what type of companies can apply to the 5G Challenge Fund? As I mentioned before, it's open to all UK registered organisations. The rate of funding, which I think is on the next slide, depends on your organisation side. Particularly if there's only one applicant, which admittedly I'd find quite surprising. Generally, this type of project is likely to need more than just one company. But if you have all the skills in-house to do this, then that's fantastic. But you do need to be company registered in Scotland. Consortia are definitely welcome and can come from anywhere. We do consider entities like universities, etc., in exactly the same way we do any other business. So,
Dan, sorry to interrupt there. I can't see the presentation. Can everyone else see it? Is it just me?
I can see it.
Oh, you can see it. Okay, I can't see it. Sorry, it's just my end. That's okay. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Scared me for a minute there, but I'm talking to myself. Yeah, so consortia are definitely welcome. All types of organisations again. Yeah, I think this doesn't just apply to consortiums, but also individual companies. By the end of the second stage of the application, we definitely obviously need to identify the resources available that are able to complete the project. As I mentioned, it's a portion of funding. So these are the different sized organisations. For anyone who's involved in Innovate UK funding applications, these all look incredibly familiar, along with the cost categories on the right-hand side. The difference with this is we're really quite flexible in what the match is. So it can be cash or in kind, as it says there, staff time, expertise and resources. The one thing that differs here from, say, a normal Innovate UK funding application is we can't fund overheads. So overheads definitely become a cost match. So whatever, I know for universities it can be 50, 60%. For other companies it might be 20. I think the standard for a company from Innovate UK is about 20%. So that proportion of your labour costs can be claimed as a match. Just looking through the detail here, I'd like to assume a lot of this is self-explanatory, but maybe not. The labour, that is the cost of your labour. So if you're used to charging a day rate or something like that, this funding isn't a profit-making exercise, so we are only funding your costs. Same applies to materials. Materials is really referring to sort of any consumable items that are related to your project. Capital expenditure, if you're able to justify some capital expenditure that you need to make to be able to execute and deliver your project, that's where that gets included. Subcontracting, I expect that if there's a company that you really need and is a key part of your project, I'd probably suggest they need to be a partner as opposed to a subcontractor. So to be honest, don't expect to see too many subcontracts, and if they are in there, they'd be fairly small. This also impacts how much funding you can receive. So I'm happy to dig into the details of that with anyone who has a challenge with subcontracting. Travel and food, etc. We realise that companies may not be in the Tay5G's region, so you'll probably have to make plenty of visits to come to the area to do different tests and execute your projects. So we incorporate that as well. And any other costs that can be directly tied to the delivery of your project can be included here as well. Okay. Application process. For all of this, please talk to us. There are quite a few grey areas when it comes down to funding these types of projects. So I think a conversation and discussion is always helpful. You definitely don't have to talk to us, but it can help. It gives us an idea of any challenges you might be facing on any hurdles. So if there's anything at all you're not sure about, definitely reach out for clarification. For instance, if we find that there's something that's a barrier for quite a few companies, then we might be able to remove it. Otherwise, we're here to help your application be as successful as possible. So stage one, as we mentioned, this is coming up on the 31st of January. I think it's Tuesday at midday is the deadline that we've set. It's a fairly short application form. Email that email address to get a copy of it. Again, we're asking people to do that just so we can keep track of who's interested in potentially putting in an application. It's fairly short. I think it's something like 3 or 4 pages. Maybe when you fill out the word count, it might be a little bit longer, but you know, I think it's about 10 questions and they're limited to either 200 or 400 words. So it's a fairly quick one. It is a very high level idea of what your project is, who you are, and what you're planning to do. It doesn't get into the technical details of the 5G project itself and what exactly you're going to do throughout the project, or even get into the final cost. If you've got all that stuff, great. Definitely welcome to include it, but that's not our expectation. And this is based upon the fact that 5G is really new and a lot of people really don't understand it in a lot of detail. So we're bringing the experts, partner experts to the table to help you out with that in the second stage if you're lucky enough to get through. So yeah, the first stage is more about those impact goals as it relates to, say, the main aims of the Tay5G project overall that I mentioned back at the start of the presentation, and understanding who you are and what you're doing. Stage 2, if you're fortunate enough to get through to stage 2, this is where we really just sit down with you and work out what exactly your project is, understand your solution a little bit better, or what you're trying to apply 5G to. We can then refine, you know, what those requirements are, what resources are needed. If you, again, already know them, great. If you already have sort of the technical support that you need, or you don't need any, that's fantastic. Our partners at AWTG and the Scotland 5G Centre will be helping out with this stage. And that piece of collaboration feeds into your stage 2 application. So us at Urban Foresight and our technical partners will work with you on that stage 2 application to ensure that, you know, we develop a fairly well-rounded proposal. You're under no obligation to use any of that help at all. You're totally welcome to go do a stage 2 application by yourself if you get through to that stage, but it's up to you. After that, for the lucky few that get through to this stage, this is probably a little bit too much detail, but there's a few processes that it needs to go through. The final selection, I'd like to call them winners, but you know, nothing's in concrete until the contract's signed. So there may be a need to do a presentation to the Tay5G board after that stage 2. But that remains to be seen as to whether it is needed based upon the proposals that come in. So all of this kind of culminates hopefully around the end of April, with an anticipated project starting around May. So keep that in mind as you're drafting your proposals. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is that it is £450,000 and up to 6 winners. We don't anticipate kind of evenly sized projects. So we're hoping to fund a range of different sized projects. So we do expect some to be big projects, and we do expect fairly small projects. So, you know, if you're sort of doing a calculation in your head and dividing 450 by 6 to work out what amount you should be targeting, it's probably not worth doing that because it really is more about the, you know, the impact merits of your proposal and, you know, the solution you're solving and really how it applies to 5G. Okay, how to apply. Email me, get an expression of interest form, and the same email address is where those submissions come in, hopefully before midday on Tuesday, the 31st of January. Just a few takeaways. As Tony mentioned at the start, again, we've got drop-in sessions on the next 3 Thursdays, I believe, at different times. So the tay5g.com website will have a list of when those drop-in sessions are. So if you want to do that, keep an eye on it. But tomorrow's is at 11. It's not going to change. just a reminder, it is for users and innovators. So, hopefully we have industry out there who, are using some technological solution that they think might benefit from 5G. Reach out to your solution provider and see if they aren't interested in basically receiving some funding to 5G enable their solution. As I mentioned, range of project sizes, and it's often mistaken. We're not looking for 5G solutions, 5G technologies. We're looking for technologies that use 5G. Key nuance, but can be important and sometimes can put people off. So just wanted to make sure. And talk to us. Best way is to reach out and have a conversation, and we can have a look at what you're aiming to do and work out how to make the best application as possible. Thank you very much. I guess this is where we open up for questions.